Howdy! My name is Joel, and today we're going to be replacing this 12B turbo with a 16T, and we're going to install a full 3-inch exhaust system. Let's do it! Before we get started with the actual installation, I want to go ahead and take a look at all the parts I got for this actual installation. First, we have the turbo here. This is a TD04 HL16T. This is from a front-wheel drive Volvo. I'm going to get to that in a minute. First, I just want to show you some of the other parts. I'm moving kind of quickly because I want to get to the actual install. So I got new spark plugs from NGK. I went ahead and got a Kinugawa oil and water line kit. This is stainless lines for the oil lines and the coolant lines for the turbo. Now, I am going to use the oil feed and the coolant lines that are in here. I'm not going to use the drain that comes in here because that requires other attachments and things. I'm going to go ahead and use a stock drain line that actually fits the TD04 turbos. In order to use one of these front-wheel drive turbos, you have to basically take it apart into 3 parts and rotate them. That's called clocking the turbo. And in this case, I bought an actual bracket from Yoshifab that lets you relocate your wastegate actuator. So this is set for 10 PSI. This is what I got from Yoshifab because otherwise you have to make this bracket, and I'm not quite that handy. So I decided to go ahead and buy the off-the-shelf option. I did also find this gasket. This is for the downpipe itself, and it's specific to this flat flange or straight flange turbine. This was really hard to find. I don't know if it's out of stock, but this is basically new old stock. So I'm lucky I was able to find that. I also got new gaskets for our exhaust manifold. Of course, this is between the manifold and the engine block. And I got new nuts for the exhaust manifold, and I got new washers to go with those nuts. So I figure as long as we're in here, let's go ahead and get new stuff. So I want to go ahead and show you this actual turbo. Now, I have a 1987 Volvo 740, so that has an older style intake manifold. So this is the 1990 plus version. It's known to flow better, and I'm pretty sure it's the only OEM option that will fit up to this actual turbo. So this is from, I believe, a Volvo S70 T5. The 16T would have not only been original equipment for that car, but it would have been the turbine with this straight flange or flat flange. I won't go into all the details, but there's a few variations on this turbine. I got this one because I think it's the best compromise for my particular project and my needs as far as ease of installation and all that. The exhaust that we're going to be putting on is a full Martelius exhaust with a downpipe that fits this flange specifically. So I had to make sure that I bought the right one because I knew I was planning to use this turbo. Now, let's talk about the turbo that we picked for this project. One of the reasons I wanted to get the 16T was because it's supposed to be a pretty solid upgrade from the stock turbo, and still reasonably decently low RPM actually starts making boost. So I picked that, and I'm not running crazy high boost on this particular build, mainly because of the connecting rods on this particular car. So this is a can't remember what year, I don't know if it's 89 or 90, somewhere in there, Volvo switched to heavier thickness connecting rods that are known for taking a little bit more boost abuse and more power, so to speak. So the bottom end tends to hold a little better. Depends on who you ask. They would say that these skinny rod cars tend to become under risk around 15 pounds of boost. Again, that I'm going based off of internet forum wisdom here. So what I did was I got the wastegate actuator from Yoshifab that's set at 10, and I'm just going to start with that. Now, the thing is, a larger turbo, larger compressor, will actually flow more air than a smaller turbo, even at the same boost number, the same amount of boost pressure. So 10 pounds of boost on a 16T is not going to be the same as 10 pounds of boost on, this is a 12B, but a lot of people use the 13C as their reference point because that's what most of these turbos had. So that's good to know, because I've driven a red block on between 10 and 15 psi before, so I have an idea what that feels like on one of the small turbos, and so hopefully the 16T will flow even more. So we're going to play it safe. This is not a high horsepower build. This is truly a fun daily driver build. I want to make this car more fun for daily use. It's still my affordable classic. I would like the engine to remain the actual engine that the car came with. And so I'm making my decisions with that as kind of being my North Star. So we're going to keep the stock intercooler. We're going to keep the stock airbox. We are not going to touch the fuel injectors. But as I mentioned earlier, we are going to put that bigger exhaust on. So that is really the plan, and I'm really excited. I do want to talk about something that I found in this engine bay just recently that I'm none too pleased about. You can't see it on camera, but there is one of the 8 exhaust manifold studs down here on the front of the engine is broken off, and I never noticed that before until I went to go spray some PB blaster on all of the actual studs. So it looks to me like it's actually broken off and not just missing, and it looks like it's broken off just below the surface. So that's no good, and that is not something I am going to try to fix on my own. I do not have the expertise in that area, so ultimately I'm going to turn this over to my local shop, and I'm going to give them an opportunity to try to get that out. With my luck, if I tried to work on it, I would probably make it harder for them to ultimately extract it. And like I said, I'd love to keep this engine in the car, and I'd love to keep this cylinder head on this engine, if at all possible. So that's our goal. We are gonna do everything we can here to make this happen as far as the removal, but we are not going to be doing all the work here in my driveway start to finish. The reason I'm going to go ahead and remove everything is because ultimately I'm going to get this car towed to my local shop. That is the plan. That might sound silly, but it's cheaper to tow the car than to pay them to do the labor to remove all this stuff. So I'm going to be taking out my airbox, and I'm going to be taking out my turbo, my manifold, and my exhaust. Hopefully, that is the plan. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with that plan and see how far we get. All of our intake hoses are now off. I did my very best to try and use a camera angle that would be good for you to see as much as possible. It is tricky because I'm going to be working over the manifold, and I don't really want to show you footage of the back of my head any more than necessary, so we'll do the best we can here. Airbox out. Okay, spark plug wires are out. Oh, wow, that was like scary loose. That's 2. That is 3. Alright, so this is pretty common for red blocks. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but the actual stud came out with the nut, so instead of the nut breaking loose, the stud broke loose, which is fine. We can get this off somehow, or we can buy new ones, or whatever we got to do. That was not very tight, and that is 4. So the top 4 are loose. I took 3 out. I'm actually gonna chill for now, because what I would like to do while the manifold is still in place is I would like to loosen the nuts over here on the downpipe. It's a little hard for you to see. There's 2 on top and there's 1 on the bottom. All right, that's 1 loose, and that's 2 loose. I am ecstatic. Oh yeah, these can come off now. Less sharp metal to cut my fingers on. We just got number 6. And number 7 is already loose. Ah, it's another stud that came out. Oh, that That's a sad panda. We were so close, and we broke another stud. And one of the reasons I'm sad is because that is going to be harder for the shop to get to. That is definitely going to be harder than the one on the front of the engine. I think due to lack of light, I'm going to call it for now, and then we will pick up again on the next session. All right, here goes nothing. Yay! We did it! Mostly. Well, we have been busy while the camera has been off. I can tell you some of the things that I wrestled with off camera. One was the bolt that you cannot see from here that is underneath the turbine and the exhaust manifold. It's basically a bracket coming off of the engine block, and there's a stud on the manifold that goes through a hole in that bracket. So you literally cannot take this stuff off, even as a unit, until you get that bolt. I couldn't even use a socket. I had to use an extractor with an impact, and it ended up taking out the whole stud. But it is now free, so our downpipe is gone, as you saw in the earlier clip. I also have loosened the coolant lines. There's one here, and there's one that's harder to see down below. They're both basically rubber lines on metal lines with a clamp. So I loosened the clamps, and yeah, there's a bolt over here on the top of the turbo that is, I think, an 18 millimeter, and that holds in the oil line. So I will go ahead and resume taking out those things. They are loose, so they should be easy. While I'm removing these, I will tell you that I've made some progress on my engine bay cleaning since I last shared a video. I bought some brushes that go into a drill and used engine degreaser and just went over the whole thing. So I'll show you a picture of the before. The before is when I first got the car, and it's not a super high-res photo. And then the after is showing you what it looks like after I finished. So happy to have that done. Oh, I also unbolted a small 10 millimeter bolt that holds this oil line to the turbo. One of the reasons I'm getting stainless lines is I hate that setup. I hate that these hard lines are in the way of removing and or servicing your turbo. But in any case, oh, I drained the coolant off camera as well. Definitely a must do if you're gonna do this job. Okay, coolant lines 1 and 2 are off, oil line is off, manifold should come off, and remember we've got that drain pipe underneath as well. Ta-da! So that is all the work that we are going to do on this project at this time. As I stated earlier in the video, I do not have the skill set to extract broken exhaust manifold studs, so I am turning this over to my local shop. I'm going to let them have a crack at it. Obviously, I am getting it towed, and the tow truck is scheduled to be here tomorrow, and he will whisk it away, and then we will go from there and see what the shop tells us. So fingers crossed, hopefully it's good news. Bye, Bilbo. Have a good day at school. And we are back. We have Bilbo here, safely back in the driveway at home. I am so happy that our local shop was able to get those exhaust manifold studs out of the cylinder head. We've got new studs installed. I want to give a big shout out to Garrett's Automotive here in Chesterfield, Virginia. I've used them for many years, and they totally came through on this one. Now, I have had the car back for a few days. I've done some other maintenance items. I basically went ahead and cleaned the side of the engine while we had the turbo and the manifold off. Wanted to make it a lot more presentable. I also replaced the water pump, and we went and replaced the timing belt, as well as all 3 of the front engine seals that are behind the timing belt. And obviously while we were in there, we replaced all the accessory belts as well. So we've got caught up on those things, and just for fun, I also took off the valve cover and I painted it with a wrinkle coat. This is something I've wanted to do for a while, and this seemed like a good time to do it. I think the valve cover gasket might have been leaking, so why not go ahead and make the actual valve cover look fun. So let's go ahead and let me show you what I've done, and we'll get started. All right, so here we go. We have no valve cover in place. Like I said, I am currently working on painting that one. And you can see that the side of the engine is much cleaner than it was before we started. You can see there's a new water pump down there. We've got new belts, everything I just mentioned, and we've got our new studs here, and then 2 more over there. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace the oil line right here that goes into the block and comes out here with the stainless line. We're going to have to take off that oil filter relocation. Just the one giant bolt should do it. And then we're going to test fit our turbo and get started on clocking it so it can be pointed in the right direction. So let's do that. And there we go. Okay, oil line is on. Now I'm replacing the green O-ring on the oil filter adapter arm. I read that it helps if you try to like pre-stretch these. So I've done that, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so we got that bad boy in there. Well, I just learned something. This bracket for the stud on the manifold does not line up with the 1990 Plus manifold, so it must come out. I am just test fitting this manifold in order to line up our oil drain tube, so I'm not using gaskets or anything. It's really more of a rotational check, so we're just going to do it that way. You see some duct tape with lines on the turbine, and that was done in order to line up the compressor with the turbine. So I have to line the CHRA up here and rotate it so that the downpipe, or excuse me, the drain pipe goes in the right place. Then I have to go back to the bench, fit the CHRA to the compressor in the right place using my lines, and once that's together, I can softly mallet this back together and put the clamp on, and as long as all my lines are good, then everything should be good. Well, I never would have thought that to be the case, but somehow the best way to do that was from underneath the car. So now we can line them up. We are getting ready to test fit our turbo. First thing I want to do is put on our exhaust manifold gaskets. If they have 2 sides, you've got the side where you can only see some metal, and then the side that is all smooth metal. The smooth metal side goes towards the exhaust manifold. Beep, bop, beep, borp. I think we are good to go. Huzzah! Okay, so I just got under the car and it looks good. So we're gonna send these home and then we will check it again. So we could check out our ports here. Coolant port down here goes to the lower radiator hose. Can't really see that on the video very well, but that's over here. This is our coolant line that goes to our bottle. There's not a line on that. Let me go get the line. Here we go. This is the end of the braided line. Spin that bad boy on there and then tighten it down. There you go. There's your fitting for your oil line. All right, so that is nice and tight, and then our oil line just threads on in there. Okay, we got oil feed, we got oil drain, we got coolant feed, we got coolant drain. Right on. Here is our exhaust system that we're going to be installing. So basically what I did was I tried to lay the pieces out roughly where they'll be on the car. There's your downpipe, and that leads to your pipe with your catalytic converter. And then I guess you have like a mid pipe or first muffler, and then the axle overpipe bend, and then the actual final muffler, and then the tip. We do have some clamps and things here. I've got some exhaust seal that we're going to be using, and that's pretty much the gist of it. It's 3 inches front to back. I got it from Martelius, and pretty excited. So here we go. Next is our downpipe. I'm going to go ahead and install this here gasket. I don't know if it's necessary, but I do know that they installed these on the same flange on front wheel drive. Volvo, shoot, I don't know, S70 T5 maybe? So we'll give it a shot. And here we go. Okay. Okay, so we are lined up, and what you can't see off camera is the lovely Elizabeth making an invisible stack of books to hold up the other end of the downpipe. So we'll go ahead and start cinching that down. Okay, well, I will say, in the interest of transparency, that gasket was a bad idea. I have removed it, and this thing is sitting much nicer on the actual turbine. So this is the way it's supposed to go together. You're not supposed to see a gap between the two. So let's rock on. Next we have our catalytic converter pipe. Okay, we are back, and we have a totally new jack system. The car is higher off the ground because my homie Brian came over with his quick jacks, and I discovered recently that I was unable to do this on my own. So I actually took the paste off of this pipe after struggling with it, and now I'm using copper anti-seize. My goal is that this one will go on more easily than the others because it is a snug fit, and Bob's your uncle. Let's do it. Yes, it will. Okay, so now we have our whole exhaust system installed. We didn't quite get everything on camera like I was hoping. We did have to do a little bit of install and then partially uninstall and things like that. There is a strap around the first muffler, and there's hangers that line up with the factory rubber hangers in that place, so that's good. And then back here you can see the axle overpipe, and there's a joint there as well. So let me go around to the back of the car so I can show that to you. So there is the axle overpipe, and we originally had clearance issues. Right up there you can see there's like a corner of the body was contacting that pipe, And it was partly because we didn't have it forward far enough, and also partly because the hangers are too high. So I've got kind of a hobo solution to start out with. What I did was I got the pipe all lined up where I thought it should be, and I lined it up with the hole coming out of the body, and I just test fitted the tip for now. It's not clamped on. And then I used some metal zip ties to basically connect the rubber hanger to the metal hanger. So basically the problem is that these hangers that are welded to the muffler, they're not long enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the car to my local shop in a couple weeks, and I'm going to have them braze those off and put on some longer hangers that basically will put the muffler in this location, and then it'll be all nice and secure. So you know, I wish it went a little more smoothly, but that's how it is sometimes. I'm really pleased with the product. I'm gonna go ahead and keep this project moving, and then we will give you an exhaust clip later in this video. One other thing I wanted to show you is the custom bracket that I installed in order to secure the exhaust to the drivetrain. So there's a factory clamp up by the bell housing that would normally connect to the downpipe. I don't really have room to accomplish that same thing because of the 3-inch exhaust. So what I did was I installed this clamp back here. This is a clamp attached to a custom strip of metal that uses an existing threaded hole on the overdrive tail housing area. So just throwing this out there, if you have an M46, you'll want to come up with something like this. If you don't support the exhaust in this way, it will flex as you accelerate and decelerate, and eventually that movement will transfer to your turbine, and that could cause like a crack into the turbine housing. So just throwing that out there. I have done a few more things in the engine bay. I have connected a vacuum line from the compressor housing to the wastegate actuator. I've reinstalled our air box. I have started installing our charge pipes, and now I'm going to reinstall the valve cover. First, I'm going to put some RTV down in the base of the little half circle areas, just to try to prevent leaks. Now I'm going to install my oxygen sensor. And now the last thing we have to do is replace our spark plug wires. I've already replaced the coil wire, and let's do these. All right, that is everything. So let's go ahead and make sure we can get the car running correctly and that we don't have any leaks, and we'll take it down off jack stands and see what we find. Okay, so we are back driving the Volvo 740, and so much time has passed since we first installed the turbo and the exhaust. I'll give you a quick rundown of a couple of items, and then I'm just going to give a quick review of how it drives. So one issue that we did have was that the turbine side of the turbo mating up to the downpipe flange did not work as well as it originally looked in the video. Basically, it looked like it was sealing, but the lower bolt wasn't sealing very well, and I was able to confirm that the machining on the custom downpipe didn't actually fit over the lip the way it should have on the turbine. So I emailed the company that sold me the exhaust. They actually just went on summer holiday at the time, and they were going to be out for a month because they are in Europe. And ultimately I decided to have a local machine shop go ahead and take care of that for us. So I had it done. It was a couple $100. I was able to contact the company when they got back from holiday, and they apologized. They said that they had an issue with a batch that they had put out. They knew about the problem, and they basically reimbursed me for that work. So water under the bridge, no big deal. Then the bracket that you saw underneath the car that I just showed you, that probably went through like 3 iterations before I was finally happy with it. And then I also had to remove a heat shield in that same area where that little bracket was located because I was having some slight clearance issues. I've got new hangers, metal hangers on the muffler to actually fit so that everything is lined up perfectly. All kinds of things in life have happened. This just hasn't been the highest priority, and that's why it took so long. So please don't think if you're doing this job, it's going to take you months. It just is how long it took us. So how does it drive? Overall, I am super happy with the upgrade. This is exactly what I wanted this car to be. Ultimately, I would say the turbo probably spools up maybe a couple hundred RPM later than the smaller turbo, but the payoff is that I feel like I have something up top. Every time I want to drive this car for fun and really push it, the power is there. And the best way I can think to compare that is with the smaller turbos. The power just wasn't there. You got that surge of torque, and that was fun, but it just didn't stay on the boil. And this car, I feel like the useful RPM of the bigger turbo is maybe 1,000 RPM higher. Again, that's my seat of the pants evaluation. Other people might disagree. They might love the small turbo. But with the manual in particular, I really like it. So I can stay in it. That was like 5,500 RPM, and it's still an old school turbo car. Like, there's still that spool, and a lot of times I just drive it around and I just tip my foot in and maybe make, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 pounds of boost, and then I decide I really want it, and I put my foot down and I wind it out, and it's all there. So I'm really happy with the upgrade. I think it's a good idea for anybody who wants to make that change. As far as the exhaust is concerned, it's not very loud. It makes good sounds, and it's probably not helping my overall power output. I'm just going to be real. 3-inch, you don't need it for this setup, for this car, the way I built it. I just wanted it, so there you go. I decided to buy it. Do I regret buying it, considering some of the complexity that we ran into? Not quite. I wouldn't say I regret it. I wish it was easier, ultimately, and, you know, some folks might have been more willing to go with like a custom shop doing like a 2.5 inch all the way back, and that would be fine as well. I like that this was designed by a company specifically for this car, and I'm really enjoying it. I like how it sounds. I like how it looks. As far as boost pressure is concerned, I did use the 10-pound wastegate that I got with the Yoshifab relocation bracket, and I don't know if it's because my factory boost gauge isn't super well calibrated, or if because I have a more free-flowing exhaust, but it's actually making like 12 pounds of boost, and that's exactly where I want it to be. I want it to be at 12 pounds of boost, so I'm happy about that. I'm happy about the overall outcome. I'm happy with the sound. Again, now that we're at the end of the project, I don't have any complaints. It did everything I wanted it to do. It just took a little bit longer, and we had some snafus on the installation along the way. So if you're interested in this kind of upgrade, I say go for it. I think that the turbo upgrade is kind of a no-brainer. I will say that some folks with automatics, I have heard them say that they prefer the smaller turbo because when you put your foot in it and it downshifts, you got boost immediately, whereas this is a manual. And so, you know, your driving style and your transmission could be a factor. But for what I was looking for, this is it. Very happy. Like I said in previous parts of this video, I'm trying to protect this transmission. I'm trying to protect my allegedly skinny connecting rods. And as a result, I'm not going crazy with this build. This is basically it. 12 pounds of boost, nice exhaust, nice mid-size turbo, and I feel like this car really kind of delivers on what I hoped it would become. So I do have a few more things I want to do on this project. Probably going to finish up some of the cosmetics. I know I'm going to be doing sewing up the seat pockets that sag, which is a classic Volvo thing, and maybe do a paint correction. Not necessarily going to do videos on all of those things, but this is great. If this is something you're considering, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you need to buy one of these front-wheel drive turbos and you need to clock it and make it fit, I hope that you found some information that was useful. So thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll catch you in another video. Cheers.